Welcome to this edition of Weather to Watch. It is Monday, the 11th of June, 2025, and as you can see, we're looking out for some flooding in parts of the country. Here's what I'm talking about today. A look at the next 2 days of hazardous rain outlooks. We'll dive into that with a little more detail. Also, severe weather is in Texas now, but on Friday, we're expecting a return to a little bit more widespread activity. We'll detail that here in a second. But let's go back now and take a look at the visible satellite. There's obviously a feature here in Texas. And just kind of generally in the Intermountain and Rocky Mountain area, there's just a blowup of just general kind of garden variety thunderstorms. Pretty good activity also on the west coast of Florida here. The nicest weather award goes to parts of the Northeast and the northern plains. And then there's also some activity, thunderstorm activity going through northern Iowa. The Texas activity is all connected to this low pressure center with a circulation going around it like that. You can see it in the clouds. The high-level clouds are kind of circulating in like that. Most of the activity in terms of radar reflection is down there, and we'll take a look at that in more detail in a minute. The faster 500 millibar flow is up here, and out west, there's just enough mid-level flow to support organized thunderstorms. There's orographic effects out here, meaning that the mountains themselves help to lift the air and produce thunderstorms. There's also a little disturbance. There's kind of a triple thing going on out there that's keeping some of those thunderstorms going out in Wyoming, Colorado, Utah, those types of areas. On the surface map here, almost in the middle of June now, it's kind of unusual to see a string of cool fronts like this, but nevertheless, there they are. These are two, this one's kind of a reinforcing shot of cooler, drier air. This one is, again, actually serving the same function because the main front that separates the really humid and unstable air from everybody else is down here in the deep south. Let's take a look at some station models. We'll go for the rarefied air first, where temperatures around Bismarck, North Dakota are only 72 degrees here in the mid part of July. And I think that is, I'm not sure what town that is, but 69 degrees there. International Falls, probably. 82 over in Green Bay, not too bad. 80 around Rapid City. And then, so this is really in the air. Look at this air. Some of these dew points are in the low 40s. Up here, even 32 degrees out over Montana. So very dry air, very typical of what we call continental air, which actually was born over central Canada, where there's not a lot of moisture influences, oceans that can't be tapped. The mountains prevent it coming in from the Pacific. So these air masses truly are very, very cool and dry when they originate up in there. Meanwhile, complete opposite here. You're wondering why there's heavy rain forecast here. We'll dive into that in a minute, but look at these dew points. Houston 73, Corpus Christi 74 degrees, Baton Rouge 75 degrees, and the winds are generally kind of circulating around a very weak low that's moving through Texas. And we'll show you the radar and also the severe weather and heavy precipitation outlooks here in just a second. Here's a look at radar, and you can see this activity is slamming through Louisiana, really covering basically the northwestern part of the state. More just generalized rain showers moving into parts of Arkansas, and you get some pretty good thunderstorm activity just northwest of Jacksonville, Florida, and right around the Tampa area. Anybody vacationing there is seeing a little bit above normal on the thunderstorm meter. Usually it's more widely scattered than that. If we take a look at radar here, I snapped this right around 5 o'clock. There's one severe thunderstorm warning in effect right in the center of Louisiana, pretty much, and more general rainfall north of there. And then the low, you can kind of see the spinning in the rotation of the radar echoes here. That's so slow moving. That's why the rainfall totals are going to rack up quite a bit over the next 24 hours. Severe thunderstorms are still forecast to be at their highest level of risk, really, which is a level 2 in northern Iowa, and also down here from Houston back over to San Antonio. And just generally, you saw those thunderstorms out over the mountain regions out in the Rockies. Level 1, probably hail and some gusty winds. Unlikely to get a tornado on any of this, except maybe this activity down here. I'm going to take a look at that. The Storm Prediction Center has issued this 2% area from San Antonio over to Houston and the areas north. They're not quite getting up to Tyler or Longview, but pretty close. Now, I will point out that the NATO cast from this morning does show, yes, that maximum, which is at 5%, a little higher, but it also does show these thunderstorms in Iowa could maybe produce an isolated tornado. The probability is not very high, 3%. So that's 3% chance of a tornado within 25 miles of a point. Now, not much is going to happen on Thursday, severe weather-wise, but I did want to skip ahead to Friday and show you that. So the sort of the high plains is active with a level 2 out of 5 from south central Montana all the way down to the panhandle of Oklahoma, and equal threat chances there, but probably not so much tornadic, but a lot of large hail and damaging winds. And I want to mention, too, that every morning I produce a severe thunderstorm outlooks video. It comes out somewhere between 8 and 9 a.m. Central Daylight Time, right after the Storm Prediction Center issues their morning updates. So if you want to look out for the next week and beyond, all the way to July 1st, if you watch this morning's, please tune into that as well. Let's dive into the heavy rain discussion. First of all, here around evening here, dinner time on this Wednesday, we do have a mesoscale discussion on heavy precipitation. So this is saying that through about 10 o'clock tonight, rainfall totals of 3 to 5 inches are possible with slow-moving cells that are, again, marked by the X's here and are going to be moving into this hatched area. So this was the main rain I showed you on radar. This is stuff that has yet to develop and slide eastwards. So that is the reason why they issued a heavy rain hazard for a moderate risk of heavy rain between Houston and Dallas and getting over to around the Austin area. That's for tonight and even early tomorrow. If we zoom in on that, that's what we're talking about there. So this is the hill country region, and flash flooding is always a problem there. So be watching out for that area. Dallas still very much in that zone of heavy rain for sure, even though their risk is slightly lower. On Thursday, this kind of meanders along, so we still have a high risk in East Texas, parts of Oklahoma, a good chunk of Arkansas, western Louisiana, and then another area pops up in southern Minnesota and parts of west central Wisconsin. If we move this ahead to Friday, still a heavy rain threat from the Boot Heel down to Dallas, slight risk, so watch out for those areas. If we take a look at the official total precipitation forecast from the government, this is the Storm Prediction Center, Weather Prediction Center's actually forecast. You can see some pockets of 5-inch rains showing up around Dallas and around Houston. This is for the next 3 days. It also shows that emphasis area in southern parts of Minnesota. And if we look at the NAM total precipitation for about the next 3 days, it's printing out 4.5, almost 5-inch rain totals, even higher than that. If you look in this darker color here, this is getting into the 6-inch rain here, right just off to the west of Austin, Texas. And if we go to the north, same model, NAM, it wants to put the heavier rains way up into Minnesota, interestingly enough. But I think there's probably room to put that down a little bit more to the south into northern Iowa, even more than what's indicated here. And then the last two things I want to show you on rain, for the period June 13th through the 17th, the government has put out a heavy rain notice for this area. So this is not what we just talked about. This is a completely different weather system, a different set of probabilities. And so is this. So this goes out June 18th through the 22nd. Missouri, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Iowa. Again, it's a low probability, but it does highlight where we think the heaviest rain will occur in general through that 5-day period. So it looks like June, living up to its name in many of these areas, is the wettest month of the year. And looks like they're going to get more than their fair share in many parts of the Central Plains. Here's the tropical forecast for the Atlantic. Nothing expected over the next 7 days. Again, you probably saw on social media that these spurious hurricanes that end up going in the Gulf, usually it's that model that we call the GFS that's responsible for that. Pay no attention to those for the most part. There's just nothing going on. In the Eastern Pacific, it is typical for things to kick up here, and there's more areas of more concern with more than a 60% probability where you see that shaded red of what's here at the X. Cosme is weakening in colder water. There are the next 3 names. Most of these storms are harmless, and they head out this way. Sometimes they get as far as Hawaii. And the reason when they curve to the northwest like this, that they die, is because there's a cold water current that comes off of California and down into this area. And as soon as they hit this sharp temperature gradient here, where it's relatively warm here and relatively cold here, they die away pretty quickly. Let's take a look at the 500 millibar forecast. Let's look at some trends in the upper atmosphere. This is the 500 millibar flow, which you've been watching this channel for a while. You know that's the middle of the most dense part of the atmosphere. So it's right in the middle of the troposphere. And it's a good kind of compromise between the jet stream level, which is actually higher, and kind of a reflection sometimes of what the surface is doing as well, the surface where we live. So this is the 500 millibar flow. This is also the EPS. So this is an ensemble forecast, and this is actually produced for the European Modeling Agency. And so what you're seeing here, just to start today, is we have this very weak upper level system in Texas that is responsible for not only heavy rain, but maybe some potential severe weather, as you saw there out ahead of that. The main jet stream flow is up in the Great Lakes into New England. This separates the really warm from the really cold air. So the really cool air is up here. This would normally be a ridge of high pressure that would probably produce more heat, but this is kind of offsetting that with its clouds and rain, and that's going to kind of disappear, really, if we start looking ahead here. So let's start seeing what happens. Also, notice that the jet stream winds are advancing a little bit higher through the Rockies and getting into coastal areas of California. So this is today. So let's go forward here. Let's go to Friday about midday right there. So this upper level feature slowly winds its way through Missouri. It's going to be laying down some tracks of heavy rain as it does so, especially on this side of it. The jet stream in the northeast is leaving into the Atlantic. This is getting stronger, and this is a ridge of high pressure down here, and this is going to start dominating. There's actually two parts to it, and normally when you get in the summer, this is all pretty much connected. Occasionally you do get a cutoff low or some little feature here, even features that come in through the back door, kind of from the equatorial regions in between the two highs. But this is getting to look a lot more like summer as we move forward. And in fact, now if we go to, let's say, Monday, that's about midday on Monday, this ridge of high pressure actually is being broken down a little bit by some troughiness, I guess you could say, and stronger winds are in a couple of belts here. So this is going to suggest that the severe weather threat is going to be really up near the jet stream, and this time of year we can get unstable air to get way up into the Dakotas, whereas in the cooler parts of spring, and sometimes that's kind of a hard thing to do. Although this year it doesn't seem to matter much. The jet stream was favorable even under conditions that normally wouldn't be considered all that unstable. Anyway, if I just advance this a little bit more, I do want to show you this is getting into, it's about a week away right here, which is about as far away as we want to get, but it does show you kind of a flattening of the jet stream pattern. This really does suggest that severe weather will break out. And as I indicated earlier, if you want a more detailed look at that sort of thing, every morning I publish a severe weather outlooks video, which covers the next 7 days and beyond. And certainly this morning we talked about how the northern plains are going to get in on more severe weather action. Meanwhile, the south is just going to gradually heat up under a ridge, which is flat, but still pretty effective at keeping things hot. Look at some high temperatures for Thursday, tomorrow. Very, very cool, where you see the shades of green and blue with 81 only in Dallas. That's very cool for this time of year. And behind this latest front in the northern plains, things heating up out west, a little bit above normal, where you see those darker shades of red. Some 100s showing up in South Arizona. Nothing really too abnormal about that, just slightly above the normals, really, for this time of year. Saturday, the effects of that jet stream flowing across the northern U.S. can be seen, with high temperatures in Minneapolis only 71 degrees, Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan 68 degrees, only 75 in Detroit. Those actual numbers are the highs, and then the colors are whether it's above or below normal. Very cool in New England, and pretty hot out around Salt Lake City, 96 on Saturday. Just to give you an example, on Sunday, skip 2 days, on Monday, now we're starting to see the effects that I was talking about earlier, where we have one kind of stalled out frontal system here, but basically summer's trying to kind of grab hold here with a jet stream flow more favorable for widespread warmer temperatures. Thanks for watching this edition of Weather to Watch. It comes out every other day, or as the weather necessitates. Please remember to share this with your friends, subscribe to the channel, or at the very least, like what you just watched. Thanks.